When we first moved in here, I was home alone. I was pregnant, and I think everybody was asleep. It was early in the morning, and I was in the living room. Everything happens basically in the living room. So I was in the living room, and this was like, we had just moved in, so it was fresh, you know. I didn't think anything of it. I was having my alone time, drinking my coffee in the morning while everybody was asleep. So all of a sudden, I heard walking, like somebody was walking outside where my window is, just walking on the grass. And I looked out there because I'm right there. There's nobody walking. So somebody was walking. It went to the roof. So they continued walking on the roof. And I was like, what was that? And I thought somebody was like on the roof, like somebody was working on the roof. But I mean, common sense, how the heck are you gonna walk on the wall? If you are working on the roof, and then I'm just like, okay, well, maybe somebody is working on the roof. Maybe they went, on the ladder or whatever. So I told my stepdad, because he got up and he went out there and nobody was there. Nobody's working on the roof. First of all, we do not have any roof problems where somebody's going to work on the roof. We're going to know prior if somebody's going to come work on the roof. So I was just like, what? I heard that clearly, somebody walking on the damn roof. So that really freaked me out. I was here walking on the roof. My mom hears it a lot in her room. So we're always hearing something happening all the time. And I just didn't think anything of it. I was just like, whatever. I'm not going to keep on thinking it's something supernatural just because I don't want to give it more attention. So it can scare me some more. See, I just heard something fall. And the girls are asleep. So there's stuff like that. Everything was perfect in this house. We hadn't had no issues or anything. And all of a sudden, my daughter is always the one who hears something. So she's the one who started experiencing stuff. And just little things here and there. Like she would put something down and then she would go and get it and it wasn't there anymore. Or she would hear her bottled water fall all the time. And she knows it was not just because it was at the edge or anything like that. Her water bottle would fall at night a lot. There was this thing with her fan. So she would turn off her fan all the time because that means she's up, ready for her day. She turns off her fan. So when she would come back to her room, she would notice the fan on, and her sister was knocked out. So that kept happening, and that's because when she would come back and she checked the fan, it would be on. She turned it off again. She was just like, whatever, So she would turn it off again, go about her business. She would get out of the room, and my other daughter would sleep. She takes sleeping pills in the night. So she came to the living room. She would do whatever it is that she needed to do. And then she would go back to her room for something. And the fan would be on again. And she would wake up her sister and tell her, well, what the heck? Why do you keep turning on my fan for? Like, come on. And Ariana, my other daughter, she's like, what are you talking about? I'm asleep. Like, she's knocked out. Like I said, she takes sleeping pills. So she would tell my daughter, like, why the heck are you turning on the fan for? I just turned it off and stuff like that. And my daughter would be like, I don't know what you're talking about. I was knocked out until you woke me up. And, they would go back and forth. And my oldest would be like, whatever. And she left. She would go out of the room. She would be mad. So this would happen almost every day. The fan issue, until she finally just whatever. Like, we just hear random things falling. Like, sometimes it's a huge item, like you can hear it. Like if something falls on our tile and it's real heavy, we hear that a lot, and it's nothing. Like, I go and check, and it's nothing everywhere. I go everywhere and nothing is on the floor that could have made that noise. And it's usually like when everybody's asleep. So the knocking would drive us crazy, right? Okay. It started with little knocks first. Okay. It started with knocks in my daughter's room on the windows. They would knock and they would be like, what is that? What is that? And they would tell me, and I'm just like, it's nothing. Maybe it's a bird, maybe it's an animal. And they're like, no, this is knocks, like somebody actually knocking on the window. And they would like mimic it for me so I could know what they're talking about. So they would tell me it's knocks, and it's every night, almost every night. And so I'm like, okay, well, I don't know, I'm sorry. So then that would happen a lot, and then it moved on to the kitchen. So somebody would knock on the back door. Then when they knocked on the back door, they started moving the doorknob. They got scared a lot. So there was that, the knocking. And then my daughter started hearing whispers in the kitchen. She heard a little girl laughing, and she said that she just heard a lot of whispers. I know when me and Viviana is so like in tune with paranormal. She can feel things, she can see things, and I can too but I think she's more into it, So when we moved in here, me and Viviana would see something in the living room, which I'm in right now, and we would see it right there where that lamp is. We would always see a white figure just standing right there. The lamp wasn't there before, we just moved it there. So we would always see a white figure, and I would see it every time I would pass through, like to go to the kitchen for my baby's bottle. I would always see it, but I would kind of just like, whatever, let me just get the bottle and go to the room. So when I would pass, I would always see it. And one day I decided to tell Viviana, because me and her, we always talk about these things, and it's a safe spot, me and her. Like we can talk about anything, and it's fine, nobody's gonna judge us about it. So I told Viviana, I was like, look, I'm like seeing something in this living room every time I'm passing. And she's like, well, what do you see? And she's like, because I'm seeing something too. And I'm like, really? And so she's like, yes. She's like, I see a white shadow figure in the corner of the living room in the back. I was like, no. And she's like, yes, that's what I see. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I see. Exactly. And she's like, yeah, but she's like, I sense that it's, she's nice. There's no like, she's not angry. She's not a mean spirit or anything. And it's a lady. I'm like, okay, well, I mean, whatever. And she's like, I'm not scared. I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. So after that, it lasted for maybe, I don't know, maybe a week, and then it was gone. So now for the restroom. My daughter would hear knocks on the restroom, like somebody was knocking on the restroom door, and she would always open it, and she would always take showers in the night, like late at night, all the time. So she always heard a knocking, like a little knock. And she would always open the door and check, and nobody was ever there. It was just a pitch black hallway. And so she would close the door. And then she said that she always thought maybe it was Dominic, which Dominic's room is right across from the restroom. So, but she's like, no. She's like, because I opened the door like right when I hear the knock. How can he go and, quietly close the door? No, it's not possible. So, she's like, no, it can't be Dominic. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe it's just an ad. And this is like, we're trying to
I guess, blame it on something else so we won't get so scared because, hey, we live here. So I'm just like, well, maybe it's just nothing, just ignore it. So she ignored it. Days go on, and she heard knocking again on the restroom door. And she checked, and of course, nobody was there. And then she started hearing whispers. And she said that somebody was whispering in the door, like the crack of the door. And she would open it, and there's nobody there. And then she said that she started hearing an old man with like a raspy voice, she said, was talking. And she doesn't know what he was saying, but he was talking to somebody. That scared her. So, you know, the knocking had continued, and there was even one time where somebody knocked and like dragged their hand across the door, like if somebody was like passing through, and just knocked and like, you know, rubbed their hand or whatever they had against the door. That freaked her out. She opened the door, and of course nobody's there. So she's just whatever. There was one night where my son, well, let's just start where he was acting really bad this day, like really, really bad. He was not listening. He was just being overly dramatic and just being crazy. So the night came, and he was in his room, and it was late at night, and he had a really bad day. Like I said, he was not listening. So he went to his room, and he came out to go to the kitchen. You know, he has to pass through here to get to the kitchen. Anyways, so he passed through here. When he passed through here, the doors are closed, and there's glass. It's French doors. He saw an old man. An old man was, he put his face against the window so he can see, because it's pitch black. He saw this old man putting his face against the door, the window, you know, and he was like that, and he looked creepy, and it scared the living, you know what, out of my son, and he went straight to his room. He didn't even go to the kitchen. So I don't know what that was. I have no idea, but we never saw the old man or nothing. He just appeared to my son. Well, then another day, it was crazy. It was actually recent, where I saw a black shadow go from, I guess, the living room. I was laying down in bed, and somebody opened my door. One of my kids opened my door, and where I was laying down, I can see the hallway from where I was laying down, and I saw a black figure just zoom by. I mean fast, and just zoom by, and it was freaky. It scared me, really scared me. So there was that. And then we always hear conversations going on right here near the fireplace. Let me show you guys what I'm talking about. So there's the fireplace. So we always hear conversation. So crazy that one day I actually got up and I went out to check, like, who is having a full-blown conversation outside in my yard, and nobody was there. And of course nobody's there. So you know, we heard that, and we still do hear conversations, and I don't know what that is. So but I'm going to show you the living room so you can know what I'm talking about as like passing through, you know. So y'all can get like a visual of how my son went to the kitchen and everything. So here is the French door. Okay, there's one part right here, then there's the hallway. Okay, very dark, very creepy. So let's go in here. See, it's very dark. Sorry guys. And then this would be my son's. Let me turn on the light. So this would be my son's bedroom. And then this is the restroom. And then that is my mom's room, okay? So there's a visual, right? So when my son came from his bedroom, he comes through here, through the hallway. And then we have to pass through right here to get to the kitchen, right? Here is the French doors, right? So when it's closed, so it's closed all the way, okay? Just picture inside, it's pitch black. So he said it was right here. The man put his head right on that window. So that gave you like some type of visual of what I'm talking about. So, so there's another scary thing that has been happening, and it actually freaked out my little one, my son, he's 7. So he was in his room by himself. He was watching YouTube, you know, he was just by himself. And my other son and my 2 daughters were in their room, and they were watching, I don't know, I guess they were watching a movie. I don't know. Me and my husband and the baby were in the room, in our bedroom. And my mom and her husband were in their bedroom. So I was trying to put the baby to sleep, right? So when we're laying flat, we cannot see who's coming in because we're laying down, you know, unless we pick up our head and we'll see, oh, okay, you know, that's whoever. The door opened and like somebody like peeked in and then closed the door. That's how it was. That's how it's been. Somebody's always opening our door and just like peeks in for a second and then closes the door. And I never really look because I have 5 kids. I assume it's one of them. And they're like, oh, okay, mom's asleep. But every time I ask on that day, that particular day, my husband got up to go and see who came into the door. And he made the mistake to go and ask my 7-year-old, and he was in his bedroom. We thought that it was him, you know, and it was not. He went over there and he's like, did you open the door? You know, so basically telling him, you need to stay in your room. Like, mommy's trying to put the baby to sleep. Just wait a little bit, you know. And my son's like, that wasn't me. What are you talking about? It had to have been my brother or... So he went to the other room to go and see who opened the door. You know, like, we're trying to go to sleep, like getting after them. And they're like, nobody, we've been here the whole time. And, you know, he's like, okay, it had to have been one of y'all, whatever. And my son followed him to see who had did that. And so when he heard it wasn't them, he started crying and he got so scared. He had nightmares that night. There was one day where my husband had came inside and he went to the restroom and he heard a baby crying. And he told me, he's like, where's the baby at? Why do you have her over there in your mom's room by herself? She's crying. I was like, what are you talking about? And he came to, like, he screamed at me. And he came to the living room where everybody was at. Everybody was here in the living room. And even the baby. And she was not crying. She was playing. And he looked at her and then he looked at me and he's like, there was a baby crying in your mom's room. It was loud and it was clear and I thought it was our baby. And I was like, no. So they went to go and check. The TV wasn't on, nothing. So let's talk about my son, my 7-year-old. Okay. He would wake up screaming and he's by himself in my bedroom. And he would wake up screaming like, this like was for maybe a week. I'm thinking it was a week. He would wake up so terrified of something and he was just screaming. And I'm just like, what is going on? And he wouldn't really tell me. He was just, he had a nightmare or he was scared. So I'm like, okay. So one day he did that again and he didn't even want to get up from the bed. I had to go to him because he was screaming, Mom, like like something was happening to him. Like, you know, your kids scream.
Over there to the room, and he was screaming, and then I brought him to the living room with me, and I told him what happened, you know, and he's like, I saw a man standing at the end of the bed, just staring at me with a hat, and that he was tall and he was very scary, and he didn't want to get up because the man was there. I was like, oh my gosh. So I tried to console him, of course, and tell him, no, it's nothing. You just had a nightmare. It's okay.
The other day I was editing a video. I do other videos for another channel, and it's more kid-friendly stuff. So I was editing a video for that channel, and I picked up a man talking in audio, and I'll insert that clip here. Tell me what you think. So there was another time that something else happened, of course. Something else was happening in this house. So my daughter was in her room, and she came out to do something in the kitchen, and I guess she was washing dishes, and she saw her curtain, because she has curtains. She saw somebody like move the curtain, and like if somebody was inside of the curtain, like a figure was inside the curtain, and that scared her so bad. I mean, all of these things that I'm talking to you about scares us a lot. You know, it's just terrifying, and it's crazy. So one night, I was in bed. I was asleep. My baby was maybe 2-3 months old, and she was fine. She was asleep. But that night, I had woke up and I couldn't move, and I had like a night light on for her. So if I would wake up in the middle of the night, I would see, you know, if she's okay. Well, this time, the light was on, and I couldn't move. It was like sleep paralysis, and I could not move anything. I couldn't even scream, nothing at all. But I looked to the side, because the crib was on the side of me. I looked to the side, and there was this black figure standing over my daughter, like standing over the crib. So I tried everything to move, like everything. I mean, because this shadow was like over my daughter. Nothing. I started praying and praying and praying, and finally this figure left, and I was able to move, and I was able to get her and make sure she was okay. I mean, she was okay. Everything was fine. But to have that image in my head that something was, it looked like this shadow was gonna hurt my baby, that made me so fearful for her life and for my life, that I didn't know what to do after that. And so see you soon, guys. Bye.